This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be but me, your me, Louie T? Welcome to lockdown coverage, week number 2 in the National Football League. Jacksonville Jaguars at home after their stunning 29-7 victory over the Texans on the road in week 1. How would they follow that up? They were one of 3 teams that I asked, were you serious? Were you for real or not? And so really wanted to see how they would handle the success that they gained and the confidence that they should have gained from week 1, and how would that carry them into week 2 versus a Tennessee Titans team that I told you I thought was still pretty good despite losing at home to the Raiders, another good team in week 1. I expected them to bounce back on the road. I never, ever drink the Jags juice. Never drink the Jags juice. It's always spiked with false optimism. And so a lot of Jaguars fans were really excited, as they should have been, but the elephant in the room remains Blake Bortles at quarterback. Look, you can't get around the fact that your quarterback isn't very good. End of discussion. And so teams are going to take away the run game. Teams are going to make it tough on you to run the football with Ivory and Fournette, and they're going to force Blake Bortles to beat you, and then what? And that's the problem that's going to remain in Jacksonville until they get a quarterback. But nonetheless, just keep this one thing in mind before we even get to the breakdown. The score was 3-0 Jags at one point in this football game. Just know that. In the second quarter, 3-0 Jags. All right. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Louie T Network. I thank you for joining me on this program. If you want to have your comment read at the end of this breakdown, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read at the end of this breakdown. And if you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2017 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. I want you to help us do that by simply hitting the subscribe button and becoming a member of the Louie T Network. Also, I'm on Twitter. @InTheLab Room is the Twitter handle. Go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter. Okay? Let's jump into this breakdown here on Lockdown Coverage. Week 2 action. Jacksonville Jaguars at home hosting the Tennessee Titans, and a little bit of AFC South family business. You know how the family do it. And we start with the Titans, who got it done in this football game, 37-16. Started out slow in this football game. It was a little bit of a filling out process for the Titans. Couldn't really get the ground game going with DeMarco Murray in the game. And they made some subtle changes. One of those changes was, more carries for Derrick Henry. And I don't know if that's something we're going to see moving forward, but obviously we know he's the future at the running back position for this football team. Both of these guys are going to touch the rock. Unless something's wrong with DeMarco Murray that I'm not aware of, both of these guys are going to touch the football. They've been doing this for the last, season and a half. Obviously, Henry was a rookie last year, and so you wanted to work him in slowly. But I like what I saw out of Henry. Obviously, they felt like he was the hot hand in this game. They gave it to him a ton, and he was a difference maker when they went on this run that they went on. Remember, they were down 3-0 in this game, scored 30 unanswered points. Did the Tennessee Titans in this ball game. It was 30-3, and they had a flurry from the end of the second quarter into the fourth, where they just went bananas, and the Jaguars helped them out by making mistakes and giving them opportunities. And so the Tennessee Titans finally got it going on the ground. And like I said before, with this football team, a lot of what they do predicates on the success they have on the ground. When they get the ground game going, then all of a sudden Marcus Mariota is able to work the middle of the football field to Delaney Walker, who is his favorite target. Now you're starting to see Tywan Taylor and other guys get involved. He made a nice diving catch in this football game, and he's the guy that I think they really want to get the football to. Obviously, Corey Davis, your first-round pick, your first pick in this past spring's draft is a guy you want to get the football to. He wasn't as big a part of this game as he was last game versus the Raiders, but nonetheless, you spread the football around, you get the ball to some of your playmakers, and that's what they did offensively. I thought they did a really good job of protecting Mariota in this game. Remember, the Jags went bananas, 10 sacks in the game in week 1 versus Houston, and so that was a point of emphasis. Hey, we got to protect Marcus. The best way to do that is to run the football effectively, and they did that, especially in the second quarter and into the second half with Derrick Henry. Had a nice 20-yard touchdown run. He almost hit 100. I don't think he's ever eclipsed 100 in his career. He may have in a preseason game, but I don't think he's ever done it in a regular season game. He may have done it in a regular season game versus these same Jaguars on that one Thursday night where Gus Bradley looked like he was ready to get fired, where the Titans were up like 34-3 at halftime. But I'm not sure if he eclipsed 100 in any game in his career, but he was dangerously close with 92 rush yards on just 14 carries with Derrick Henry. So they ran it effectively. They were able to force some turnovers. Bortles had a couple of passes tipped in the air, and they were Johnny on the spot with the Titans. They were able to pick him off. Brian Orakpo getting pressure on Bortles, able to strip the football away. And it was those turnovers that really jump-started the Titans in the right direction in this game. Offensively, they couldn't get it going at first, and then so those turnovers really got them going in the direction that they needed to be going. And once they started putting points on the scoreboard, they started to run away from this Jaguars football team. Started out with field goals, then those field goals turned into touchdowns, and the avalanche started, and it didn't stop until this game was out of reach at 30-3. And so if you're Tennessee, this is exactly what you needed. You needed a bounce-back game after last week's disappointing effort versus the Raiders at home. This was the perfect opportunity to kind of seize control of the division once again, because right now we don't know what the Texans are in this division. They were able to get a win, but it was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. You'd like to think that they're going to struggle offensively for the majority of this season. The Jaguars, they're not going to be the team we saw in week 1. I was never sold, but I do think this is a much improved defensive football team, but they're going to wilt under the pressure of their offense not being able to produce, and it's going to cause frustration on the defensive side, and they're going to give up points because of it. And so I don't expect them to sustain any type of success. And then you're left with the Colts, who they're 0-2 right now. They're in a bad way. But again, if you allow them to hang around until whenever it is Andrew Luck is healthy, they could always make a run. So if you're Tennessee, you've got a golden opportunity to try to run away with this division. The Texans are probably going to lose in week 3. I think they got New England on the road. The Jaguars, I think they're just going to lose because they're not a good football team in terms of just being able to be consistent. And then you look at the Indianapolis Colts, they're already 0-2, and they're not a good football team without Andrew Luck. So you got a golden opportunity to put some distance between yourself and everyone in this division. And this was a statement game. Go on the road against a Jaguars team that had the utmost confidence coming into this game. Thought they had a chance to kind of seize control of this division with the win and go to 2-0, not only overall, but 2-0 more importantly in the division. Instead, you bring them crashing back down to earth, cut them a huge slice of humble pie, slap them around in their own house, and come away with a 37-16 victory. And that was needed, okay? I've been on the Titans train all offseason long. Love what they did in the offseason. Love what they did in the draft. Feel like this is a team that's ready to compete right now. And if they can continue to play defense the way that they did in this game, creating turnovers and then scoring touchdowns and not settling for field goals, this could become a very dangerous Tennessee Titans football team. And they got to take care of the football. And if they can do that, they're going to be just fine. They ran the football effectively. Mariota settled in after a rough start to the game. Still wasn't one of his better performances, but it was good enough. Delaney Walker continues to be your best pass-catching threat. And those young guys, Taywan Taylor and Corey Davis and all these young guys start to really contribute offensively, and then you get Rashard Matthews to continue doing what he's doing, this offense is going to be just fine. It's nice to see Jonnu Smith get involved. And that's what I've been clamoring for other teams to do. Just get the football in the hands of a young playmaker, get some blockers out in front, and see what happens. Perfect play call, get him out in space, and he had a convoy to the end zone. And I love seeing the young guys get involved. And so that's what you're going to see from this Titans team. As these young guys develop, they're going to become more and more dynamic offensively. If this defense can continue to produce, you keep getting contributions from the special teams. You knew why you drafted your first round cornerback, Adoree Jackson, because not only was he a guy that you thought could play the cornerback position well, but he also was going to add a spark special teams wise. Second week in a row, he's had a solid return in the returns game. And so he's a guy that also offers you a little bit of a pick-me-up there as well. So I just like what the Titans have to offer right now. And this was a very impressive win on the road against a Jaguars team that probably was playing with the utmost confidence coming in to this ball game. You go to the Jaguars side of things, and really disappointing effort from them. Defensively, they hung tough early. The mistakes started to mount. You start out with the 2 interceptions by Blake Bortles that led to Titans points. Then you have the fumble that led to Titans points. And then the wheels pretty much came off of this whole entire train. They had an opportunity to get a field goal, and they had a penalty that knocked them out of field goal range. So they weren't able to get points there. Then you have a situation where you give up a big return, which set up more Titans points. Then you have a situation where you just see this game kind of slip right through your fingers. And like I said, it started to snowball, and that snowball gained traction, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger as it went downhill, and you just couldn't stop the bleeding in this football game. And before you knew it, 30 unanswered points for the Titans, and you're out of this ball game, and you have no shot. And again, teams are going to take Leonard Fournette away. Teams are going to take Chris Ivory away. Teams are going to take the run game away. They're not going to allow you to do what you did in Week 1 versus Houston and run it 30-some-odd times for well over 100 yards and not allow Blake Bortles to have to throw it 30-some-odd times. Teams are going to force Blake Bortles to throw the football and beat him and beat them with his arm, and he's not capable of doing that. And you saw that in this game. Not both of the interceptions were his fault, but it doesn't matter. You know, they go on his record. They're charged to his account, and he was behind receivers consistently in this game. He was what Blake Bortles is, and it's not good enough. And, yeah, they have injuries to some key guys on that football team. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Blake Bortles is who we thought he was. After watching him in the preseason struggle and having this quarterback competition opened up, they're not going to win consistently with him at the quarterback position. It's as simple as that. And this defense is good enough for them to be in ball games and not get blown out like this, but it's demoralizing to have turnovers. That's the one thing I said last week. If this team doesn't turn it over, they're going to be in ball games because this defense is good enough. But if you're going to turn the football over, this defense is going to be demoralized. They're going to give up points, and you're going to lose football games. The one thing you can't do with a defense that's giving you everything they've got is put them in compromising positions consistently with two interceptions and a fumble and say, hey, get stops, get stops, get stops. At some point, the dam is going to break, and they're going to start giving up touchdowns, and that's what you saw in this football game. And the Jacksonville Jaguars weren't able to respond at any point in this game. They had opportunities to stop the bleeding in this game, and they just simply weren't able to do so. They were hemorrhaging, and at the end of the game, you looked up and it was fascinating. I'm watching the Patriots and the Saints, and I'm watching the Vikings and the Steelers on two separate televisions, and you know, they've got the scores going across the bottom of the screen, and literally I'm watching the games and I'm like, okay, Jacksonville is hanging tough, 6-3. And I literally think I didn't see the score of that game for 10 minutes, and I looked back down and it was like 23-6. I'm like, what the hell happened there? Like 23-3. Like, what the hell happened in that game? That quick, it was just 6-3. And the Jaguars were on their worst behavior, and it got out of control quickly, and next thing you know, it was 30-3, and game was over basically. So, great job by the Titans going on the road and putting the Jaguars in their place. If you plan on winning this division, if you plan on making the postseason, you needed to make a statement here, go on the road, and let the Jaguars, and for even more so, and furthermore, let this whole division know, the AFC South division, put them on notice. Let them know, hey, we running things around here. We're coming for the crown this year, and to go on the road against a team that looked to be poised to try to make a run. And again, if you're a Jags fan, you're probably saying it's just one game, but you've seen this story before. You know how this movie ends. Just hit rewind on the movie and watch it over again. You know how this movie ends. So, great job by the Titans going on the road, getting the win, 37-16. If you're the Jaguars, you're a little disappointed at the outcome of this game, but I can't sit here and lie to you and act like I'm surprised, because I am not. Let's see if anybody's watching and have any comments here. Andrew Kim says, I'm really worried about that D-line and secondary with Yanda out. We'll get to the Ravens game. As a matter of fact, that's the next game up on the slate. So if you want to hang tough, I'll be up live with that game on lockdown coverage probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Let's see. Andrew Kim says, I'm feeling good about Ravens D containing Fournette and harassing Bortles. Only thing, though, is pretty scared Jags D-line versus O-line without Yanda and Jags secondary against Ravens wide receivers. It could be an interesting game for sure. I think the Ravens are good enough, just like you've seen in this game versus the game against the Browns. Their defense is so overpowering, and right now they're just doing a great job of creating turnovers. 10 turnovers in the first 2 games, 5 in each ball game. I mean, they're on an alarming pace right now, probably on pace to set an NFL record for the amount of turnovers they've caused. And with the Jaguars turning it over at an alarming rate in this particular ball game, those two meeting up could spell trouble for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And obviously, the Jags are going to struggle to run against that stingy Ravens defense. They're going to make Blake Bortles have to make some throws. And I just don't see it happening. So we'll see what happens. But in any event, that's going to do it for this breakdown. I thank you guys for joining me here on Lockdown Coverage. Jags unable to sustain the success of Week 1 in Week 2 versus the Tennessee Titans, who come into their house and roughhouse them 37-16 behind the legs of Derrick Henry. Ferocious turnover-creating defense, and Marcus Mariota settling down and finally hitting receivers and allowing them to do work. And so Titans get it done, 37-16, run their record to 1-1 on the season. And now everyone in the division, aside from the Colts, are 1-1. And we'll see who takes off and ascends from this point, because everyone's even with the exception of the Colts. And I think everyone has an opportunity to either go down or up from here at 1-1. I think the Titans are going to take off in the right direction. And I think the Jags and the Texans may begin to see their seasons cool off considerably with the way their schedules are set up. But we shall see. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Come back and join me as I break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Lockdown coverage, Week 2 coming at you. I got Ravens and Browns. I got Colts and Cardinals. I got a ton of games left on the slate. Come back and join your man Louie T. See you in a bit.